This is not celebration. This is communication. Think about that for a second. Everyone will tell you that what's happening with precious metals is just another market cycle, just another bull run. But what if it's something else? What if the financial system itself is trying to send us a message? A really quiet warning before things get loud. Today, we're going to learn how to listen. So in this explainer, we are not chasing headlines about silver's price. We're going to look much deeper than that. We're looking at this whole movement, not as some chance for a short-term profit, but as a critical piece of communication, a signal coming from the global financial system itself, a signal that the map is changing. And we need to understand that map if we're going to prepare. And that's really what we're all about here, helping you find that signal inside all the noise of modern finance. We're focused on building real, lasting resilience. And it's been fantastic to see so many of you joining this community of what we call prepared builders. If that's what you're aiming for, make sure you subscribe so you can stay with us on this journey. Every major shift in history, whether it's financial or personal, it doesn't start with a bang. It starts with a whisper, a quiet tension right below the surface that honestly most people miss because they're just so focused on the day-to-day noise. But the ones who learn to listen to those whispers, well, they're the ones who are ready when the shouting starts. Let's dive into what that means for us right now. Okay, so let's draw a really clear line in the sand here. The crowd, they get swept up in the excitement, right? The headlines, the hype, the whole emotional roller coaster of the market swings. The builder, though, has a completely different focus. They study balance sheets, not just the breaking news. They're prioritizing long-term resilience, not chasing short-term gains. It's a huge shift from reacting with your gut to deliberately managing your risk. Let's talk about one of the most powerful whispers out there right now. Inflation. We tend to think of it as just, prices going up. But it's so much more than that. It is a slow, silent, invisible transfer of wealth. It systematically moves your purchasing power away from those who leave their savings exposed and gives it to those who understand the system and position their assets with real discipline. It's not personal, it just rewards structure. And what we're seeing today, it's really not new. History gives us a pretty clear map. As the Roman system started to get fragile, citizens ran to the safety of gold and silver. During the crazy inflation of the 1970s, people fled paper currency for hard assets. And just before 2008, you saw the smart money quietly getting out of a very fragile debt system. Every single time, the pattern was exactly the same, a quiet repositioning before the crisis was obvious to everybody else. Think about the last time you were watching the financial news. Did it feel complete? Or did it feel like you were only getting one slice of the picture? The slice that's focused on the immediate market buzz and what the so-called experts are predicting. It's a really common feeling. I'd love to hear what you think, so drop your thoughts on that in the comments below. So the big question is, how do we actually move from just reacting to everything to being truly prepared? Well, you need a framework. We call it the 4 pillars of clarity. Now, in this explainer, we're going to cover the first 2, the foundational pillars. They're designed to completely shift your perspective. We'll get to the other 2, which are all about action, in our next one. Okay, let's start with the first and probably the most important killer. Choosing signal over noise. This is really the art of listening. The world is just screaming for your attention 24/7 with headlines, opinions, all kinds of distractions. But the most valuable information, it's usually found in the quiet data, in those subtle shifts that happen way before they ever become front page news. I once heard this from a man who had calmly navigated his way through 3 separate major financial collapses. He told me that by the time the market is screaming when it's all over every news channel, the smart moves have already been made. He said real success comes from learning how to listen when the world is quiet. And that, right there, is the very essence of seeing the signal. So let's apply this directly to what's happening with silver. The fact is, yeah, it's moving, but the signal, the real consequence, is that confidence is quietly leaking out of traditional currencies and debt-based systems. And that requires a major mindset shift. The question is no longer, hey, how much money can I make? It becomes, how protected am I? And the action then is to start studying the fundamentals, the balance sheets, not just the daily noise of price charts. And here is the absolute key, so please let this sink in. Waiting for the crowd to confirm what you already suspect is one of the biggest mistakes you can possibly make. The crowd is always late. They're late to the opportunity, and they are late to the danger. They only move when the noise is so loud it's impossible to ignore. But by then, that window for real preparation, for meaningful protection, has already slammed shut. All right, let's move on to our second pillar, because this builds on the first one. This is all about mindset over method. Look, any specific tactic or investment method you can find is pretty much useless without the right psychology behind it. Your foundation, how you actually think about wealth, risk, and time, that is what really determines your long-term success. Your mindset is the shelter. The method is just the furniture you put inside. Just think about those stories of the people who navigated 2008 so well. Like that entrepreneur who sold his booming tech company in 2007. His friends, they all thought he was crazy. But here's the thing. He wasn't trying to predict the future. He was just reading the present correctly. He saw the mountains of debt and the reckless behavior, and he just understood the risk. That isn't prediction. It's just clear-eyed observation. So this requires a few deliberate shifts in how we think. First, you stop trying to guess what's going to happen, and you start preparing for a range of things that could happen. You stop chasing the highest possible return, and you focus first on controlling risk. You move from just speculating on trends to building a solid structure. And maybe the most important one, you shift your goal from looking rich to being truly unbreakable. This chart here really visualizes the whole idea perfectly. Sure, luck can create some temporary wealth, but it's totally unreliable. Being a great predictor, that's incredibly difficult and extremely rare. But discipline and preparation, that is a reliable, repeatable process that is available to anyone. Lasting wealth isn't built on a lottery ticket. It's built brick by brick through consistent, disciplined action over a long period of time. And here's a core philosophy I want you to remember. The system isn't personal. It doesn't go out of its way to punish people who are uninformed. Instead, it's just designed to reward those who pay attention. Attention to the details, attention to risk, attention to those quiet signals we talked about. Your attention is your most valuable asset in this environment because that's what lets you see the patterns before they become obvious. I want you to just pause for a second and think about this for yourself. Of those shifts we just went over, which one resonates the most with you right at this moment? Is it that move from trying to predict the future to simply preparing for it? Or is it the shift from focusing on maximum returns to focusing on managing risk first? Let us know in the comments. It's actually a pretty powerful exercise. Okay, we've laid the foundation with our first two pillars, seeing the signal and adopting that builder's mindset. So now you might be asking, okay, I see the signal, I get the mindset, but what do I actually do with this information? And that is the perfect question. It's exactly what we are going to cover in our next explainer. Understanding the signal and adopting this mindset, those are the first absolutely essential steps. They give you clarity, but clarity without action, well, it's incomplete. Now that we have the foundation, the why, the next logical step is to move from theory into practice, into the how. And in part 2 of this series, we are going to focus on exactly that, building the financial shelter. We're going to dive deep into Pillar 3, which is all about building structure instead of just speculating. We will cover Pillar 4, which details the practical application of preparation. And I'm also going to walk you through our hidden signal framework for making decisions in an uncertain world, all with the goal of helping you build a truly resilient future. What we've discussed today is really the diagnosis. Part 2 is the action plan. So if you found this first part valuable, you are not going to want to miss the practical steps that come next. And the best way to make sure you see it is to subscribe to the channel and turn on those notifications. It really is the next critical step in this analysis. And finally, our standard but very important disclaimer. This content is provided for informational and educational purposes only. It is not financial advice. Please be sure to consult with a qualified financial professional who can understand your specific individual situation before making any kind of investment decisions. Thanks for your attention. We'll see you in part 2.